Welcome to VLearn, Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 37 of the subject India Earliest Times to the 8th Century AD, and the chapter is Changes in Society. The topics to be covered are Introduction, Feudal Hierarchy and the Varnas, Growth of the Kayasthas, the Untouchables, Crafts and Castes, Advance of Sioux and Decline of Vaishyas, Spread and Transformation of the Varna Hierarchy, Position of Women, Lords and Peasants, and Proliferation of Castes. Introduction. The major economic forces of the period were land grants, decline of trade, commerce and urban life, paucity of money, agrarian expansion and growing agrarian character of society, and the emergence of relatively closed local units of production and consumption. So the major economic forces of the period, they were large-scale land grants which were given by the farmers to the government, to the landlords, as well as there was decline of trade and commerce, there was decline of trade transactions as well as commerce and urban life, there was a decline of urban settlements and urban life, there was paucity of money, money was very less, money was not growing in the economy. There was agrarian expansion, there was agricultural expansion which was taking place, and growing agrarian character of society. So it was more of, the society was also moving into more of agrarian character and into the more farming character. And the emergence of relatively closed local units of production and consumption, and also emergence of closed local units. The local units of production and consumption, they were closed and the production was not happening with the level of consumption. On this basis, evolved a social structure broadly characterized by a sizable ruling landed aristocracy, intermediaries and a large body of impoverished peasantry. The unequal distribution of landed property and power led to the emergence of new social groups and ranks which cut across Varna divisions like Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. So on this basis, there evolved a social structure which was broadly characterized by a large number of intermediaries and large body of impoverished peasantry, and there was a sizable basically ruling landed aristocracy. They were few in number, the people who were aristocrats and who were ruling landed aristocrats, they were few in number, and there was a large body of impoverished peasants as well as the middlemen. The unequal distribution of landed property and power that led to the emergence of new social groups and ranks. So when the property was unequally distributed amongst the people, that led to the emergence of new groups, new social groups and ranks which cut across Varna divisions which were beyond Varna divisions like Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. So it cut across the Varna divisions and there emerged new social groups and classes. Political and social hierarchy and the Varnas. Land grants and the emerging landed intermediaries wielding economic power and political authority, they modified the Varna divided society. The new social groups did not fit in with the fourfold Varna system. So the land grants which were given by the peasants as well as the farmers to the government, and the emerging landed intermediaries, the middlemen, they wielded economic power. They had economic power, they had the power of the money, and they also had political authority. They modified the Varna divided society, they changed the Varna divided society, and the new social groups which were emerging, they did not fit in with the fourfold old Varna system. They did not fit with that system, with the new groups or new classes who were emerging. The unequal distribution of landed property created social ranks. The unequal distribution of landed property also created social ranks which cut across social status based on Varna considerations. So the landed property which was unequally distributed, that also created a lot of social ranks, lot of social groups which came and which cut across their social status based on Varna considerations. So the Samantas and the ruling landed aristocracy, the Samantas as well as the aristocrats who had land and those who were ruling, they, irrespective of their social origins, emerged with a distinctive character. So irrespective of where they originated socially and their ruling landed aristocracy, irrespective of that, they emerged with a distinctive character. The Brahman landlords constituted a section of this class. So the landlords, the Brahman landlords also, they constituted a section of this class. They gave up their priestly function and diverted their attention to the management of land and people. So the Brahman landlords, they also constituted a class and they gave up their priestly function, they gave up their function of their own, and they diverted their attention towards the management of land and towards the managing of people, how to manage the people and how to manage the land as well. Growth of the Kyasthas. The scribe or the Kyastha community was a product of the socio-economic forces of the times. Land grants involved the transfer of land revenues and land to Brahmins, religious establishments and officials. So land grants, that also involved the transfer of land revenues and land also to Brahmins, religious establishments and officials. Land grants, the grants which were received from the land, that was given to the religious organizations, to Brahmins, to the upper caste people as well as to the officials. This and other complex administrative functions created the need for a body of scribes and record keepers who were employed to draft assignment of land and keep details of land transfer, including various items of revenue. So this and other complex administrative functions, the administrative functions which were complex, that also created the need for a body of scribes and record keepers who were employed to draft assignment of land, that basically to draft how the land was distributed and also the details of the land transfer, how much land has gone to which person, including items of revenue as well. So the Gupta period witnessed the beginning of fragmentation of land. So the Gupta period also that witnessed the beginning of the land being distributed and divided. The untouchables. The impure castes or the untouchables had assumed a definite shape by the early Christian centuries. Nevertheless, they were numerically small. So the untouchables, these were considered the impure castes. They had assumed a definite shape by the early Christian centuries and they were in number, they were very small. From around 3rd century AD or onwards, the practice of untouchability appears to have intensified and the number of untouchables registered a rise. So, from 3rd century AD onwards, only the untouchability practice that appeared to have been intensified and grown, and the number of untouchables also rose. Katayana, a Dharmashastra writer of the Gupta period, was the first to use the expression asparsya in the sense of untouchables. So they also used different phrases and words for untouchables. Several new castes were included in the category of the untouchables in the Gupta and the post-Gupta times. So several new castes were also added into it. Craft and castes. During this period, several groups of artisans and craftsmen lost their earlier status and many even came to be regarded as untouchables. So during this period, several groups of people who were making their different handicrafts, they were craftsmen, artisans, they also lost their earlier status and came to be regarded as untouchables. To some extent, this may have resulted from the decline of urban centers where craftsmen were in great demand. So in urban centers where craftsmen were in great demand for making various products, unique products, and those urban centers were declined and disappeared. Craft guilds became transformed into castes, and this transformation effectively sums up the changes in the nature and organization of craft production. So craft guilds which were built, the craft guilds which were there, they also transformed into the caste system, and the transformation happened. This basically sums up the changes. The changes happened in the nature and organization of the production of craft. Various castes such as the Swarnakara, Malakara, Chitrakara, Napita, etc. emerged out of the numerous crafts. Decline of the Vaishyas and rise in the social status of the Shudras. The Dharam Shastras and similar literature suggest that a major change was taking place in the social structure within the framework of the four Varnas. A sizable section of the Shudras were rising in social and economic status after their association with agriculture, and sections of the Vaishyas, particularly those at the lower end, were descending to the level of the Shudras. They were descending to the level of the Shudras. So a large number of Shudras were also rising in their social and economic status after their association with the agriculture, when they did the agricultural activities, and the sections of the Vaishyas with whom they were also associated, particularly those at the lower end, the Shudras, they were descending to the level of the Shudras. Thus, there was a change in the relative positions of the other two Varnas also. The Shudras were no longer slaves and servants, they emerged as tenants, sharecroppers, and cultivators. So, the Shudras, they were no longer slaves, they were no longer servants, they emerged as tenants and croppers from whom they took their own share, and also cultivators of the crops. Spread and transformation of the idea of Varna hierarchy. The Varna system was also modified in course of its spread outside Gangetic northern India. The fourfold Varna system that also did not prevail in eastern India, in the Deccan and central India and the far south. The fourfold Varna system, which used to be prevalent quite long back, that did not prevail in eastern India, in the Deccan, as well as in central India, as well as in far south. So that did not prevail in Deccan, central India and far south. The fourfold Varna scheme had historical roots in northern India, where it had evolved and got entrenched over time. So the fourfold Varna system, the fourfold Varna scheme, that had historical roots in northern India. It had historical roots, it originated from northern India only, where it had evolved and got entrenched. When the idea of Varna divided society spread into other regions, there was a marked difference in its essential details. The Brahmins spread to other parts of the country as a result of the land grants from the 5th, 6th centuries. Position of women. The impression that one gets about women's position in society during this period is that of progressive decline. The law books provide for the marriage of women at an early age, pre-puberty marriage being preferred, formal education was denied to them, women and property came to be bracketed together with adverse consequences for women's status. They were generally denied property rights. However, in the case of widows, there was some improvement in proprietary rights. So basically, the position of women was not good at that particular point of time. It was being declining, and formal education was not given to them, and their marriage was preferred at a pre-puberty, at an early age, and they were also being bracketed with actually property. They were not given property rights also. They were withdrawn property rights. But in the case of the widows, there were some improvement in proprietary rights. Lords and peasants. It has already been pointed out that in the agrarian system of this period, there were different grades of landlords as distinguished from the peasants. So there were different grades of landlords. The grades of landlords were different as distinguished from the peasants. Terms such as bhogi, bhokta, bhogapati, mahabhogi, brihad bhogi, etc. were used for the landed beneficiaries. So the landed beneficiaries, terms such as bhogi, bhokti were used. The upper crust of landlords included such dignitaries as Ranaka, Raja, Samanta, Mahasamanta, Mandaleshwara, and so on. The upper crust of landlords included such dignitaries. The king similarly had many high-sounding titles connoting his lordship and ownership of land. Proliferation of castes. Some features of the caste system during this period have already been mentioned. It was pointed out that one important development which took place during this period was that the number of castes or jatis increased substantially. This development affected even the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Shudras, and the untouchables as well. The existing Varnas were split into many castes, and many tribes which became transformed into castes were therefore included in them. Differences within the Varnas intensified as Brahmanical society expanded. So as and when the Brahmanical society expanded, differences also appeared within the Varnas. The Brahmins, the number of castes which emerged among the Brahmins was considerable. Brahmins who commercialized their priestly services, those who came in contact with the aboriginals or those who could not entirely avoid physical labor, stood degraded in the eyes of the Srotriya Agrahara Brahmins who did not engage in manual labor. The migration of Brahmins to various regions for the enjoyment of land grants also accelerated the process of caste and subcaste formation within the Varna. The Kshatriyas. Among the Kshatriyas, proliferation of caste was caused by the emergence of new ruling houses from among the local tribes and the incorporation of foreign ethnic groups wielding political power into the mainstream of society. So, among the Kshatriyas, the proliferation of caste was also caused by the emergence of the new ruling houses. The proliferation of caste was there and was caused by new ruling houses from among the local tribes, and among the foreign ethnic groups, the Bactrians, Greeks, Sakas, Parthians, Hunas, etc. were accommodated in the Varna system as second-class Kshatriyas. The norm that the Kshatriyas alone could rule forced new ruling houses to seek Kshatriyahood through Brahmanical support so as to win popular acceptance of the rule. The Shudras, endogamous groups coming from various communities and religions, vastly expanded the base of the Shudra Varna. Petty peasant castes, rich peasants, sharecroppers, and artisanal castes with unequal access to economic power were included in the Shudra Varna in Gupta and post-Gupta times. Thus, Shudra Varna included widely disparate groups and came to comprise the largest number of castes. So, they were the largest number of castes, and the small petty peasant castes and artisanal castes, sharecroppers, which were not included, which were not given economic power, they came in the Shudra Varna only. These are some of the questions you have to do it yourself. The session was all about different castes and about their features. So question number 1, discuss the changes in the Vaishya community with reference to their economic decline. Your answers should not exceed 10 lines. Question number 2, discuss the position of women during this period. Answer in 10 lines. Thank you. That's all. Happy learning. We learning.